Yeah, this one's one big rabbit hole. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm an associate broker, residential sales manager at ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 201. So I'm recording a little late because I just went down one of those rabbit holes, sort of, kind of, for this episode, and it's one of those things that I would really like to do right. And it involves, homesteading, subdividing property, rights of survivorships, heinous city politics, county politics. It's quite the little story. And if I can do it right, I think it's going to be something exceptional. Which means I'm going to need time, and time is one thing I don't have, because this episode is future past, because right in the middle of my day today, got an email saying that the National Association of Realtors was going to have a Zoom call meeting from their economists, and they were pulling out the crystal ball and going to try to figure out what's going on with 2025. And I'm like, well, that sounds like something I might be interested in. So watch that, and it's got some information on that, got information on Phoenix. So let's start at the top. I'm doing well. How are you doing? So the PAR, Phoenix Association of Realtors, came out with a idea meeting or something, and unfortunately they had, at the same time I had my sales meeting, and they're rolling out a new MLS system that they're trying to say is going to be as good as Armless, the one that we all use, but cheaper, and without all those weird little NAR entanglements going on. Might be going over that. Definitely something we're going to have to research as a company, decide we want to take that strategic route. But till then, we're just going to have to see. I'm not sure the reasoning behind it. I have a lot of questions. Is like, if you list on the new MLS, how's anybody going to find your property if they're not on the new MLS? But there was an article on Inman about how some of the major brokerages are actually getting off their local MLSs. And this is something we talked about. If you are a large brokerage, saying you have 1,500 agents, and let's say of those 1,500 agents, you have 3,000 listings on there, do you really need outside brokerages, buyers agents, and buyers to service your clients, the sellers? Now, remember, the entire concept of the MLS was designed from the ground up to say, instead of having what's called a pocket listing, you hire me to sell your house, right? And I go, I'll get your house sold, and then I turn around and I advertise it in the newspaper. And I'm going to show you some of that later on because it's sort of cool. And then people put a sign up in my window and stuff like that, and people walk by, and I show you some pictures, and like, hey, let's go down and take a look at the house. The MLS's idea is that as areas get bigger, instead of you, the consumer, needing to go to every car lot on the street to figure out what car you want to buy, you'd be able to hire one person who could go look at all the properties, talk them over with you, and then you get to see all the properties without having to go to every, shop to every store. Now, and that came around to, how do these guys get paid? All right, that's where we started to come up with what's called sub-agency, where that person who was walking you around when you had the offer ready to go would be a temporary employee of the listing agent. It's called sub-agency. Unfortunately, what that meant is that the guy who's been working with you, or gal, and helping you find property, all right, and answering your questions, well, as soon as they become a sub-agent of the listing agent, they have a fiduciary duty not to you, the buyer, but to the seller, right? So the buyer becomes unrepresented. All right? So we came up with a clear cooperation, right, as a fix to that, to try to help the buyer out, where we just simply said, hey, you, listing agent, you can still sell the house on your own. You can still go out there and try to find the buyers individually. But if you want any other agent's help, you're going to have to pay them, and you're going to have to share your commission, Mr. Listing Agent, with the buyer's agent, which we call the selling agent. That screws a lot of people up, so don't worry if it's confusing. And that was the next evolution of this, and this was all fine and dandy until people started telling their sellers, oh no, you have to pay the other side, and people started telling buyers, oh yeah, don't worry about it, it's free to you, and then lawsuits abound. So, and here we are today, 2024, going into 2025 and still trying to figure out what we're going to wind up doing. But what are we doing right now? Right now, we are still in that holding pattern. Let's take a look at the numbers real quick. All right. And these are numbers for December 11th, 2024. Actives this week are 20,928, down 186, so we're definitely off our peak. New listings are 1,640, up 380, so we're picking up people who are getting ready for the January rush. Contracts were at 18,032, that's up 292, and our closings last week was 1,276. Coming soon to an MLS near you is 521 new listings. Now down below that we have the Cromford report numbers. Inventory is dropped, right? Our supply is now at 88.8. Our demand stayed the same at 77.1, right? Giving us a Cromford report number of 86.8. Now looking into our local regions and stuff like that, we have 1, 2, 5, 6. We have 6 gainers. Okay. Chandler, of course. All right. Is leading back at 135.7, followed by Fountain Hills, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Avondale, and Tempe. Those are all your sellers markets. All right. Paradise Valley is almost but not quite a seller's market. Don't care. They're rich. All right. Or balanced market. Right now, Glendale, Cave Creek, Gilbert, Mesa, and Peoria are all your balanced markets. And, of course, Surprise, Goodyear, Queen Creek, Maricopa, and Buckeye are all your buyer's markets, your hardcore buyer's markets. And every one of those are falling. So we're starting to get that two-tier thing. Desirable places, seller's markets going up. Less desirable neighborhoods still dropping down. Right? So the number I wanted to show you, let's follow up on a couple things. I really thought I had saved a doc here, so hold on for a second. Okay, I guess I don't have it, but it was I was trying to save it off of Cromford. It was a price per square foot, and then we're up to like $296 a square foot. Take that number, stick it in the back of your head, and it was also showing that we have almost but not quite hit the peak of what we did after the COVID run up before the interest rates started going up and brought the market back down. So we're bouncing across the top right there. Or do we? Once again, same thing this week. When's the crash going to happen? And next thing you know, I'm giving you the lecture about how there's not going to be a crash, and I see your eyes start rolling in the back of your head. So, but where are we looking in the future? What are we going to look at 2025? Let's talk about that NAR conversation. Right. First chart that they had on the NAR or things from the NAR conversation. They were calling out that the interest rates during Trump's first administration averaged between 4% and 5%. Right, the 2s and 3s that you think of, that was the COVID run when they were literally pumping money into the economy, trying desperately to keep the Great Depression 2 electric boogaloo from happening. All right, so. But could we get back to 4 and 5s in the second Trump administration? Well, administrations don't have that much of an impact on what the interest rates are. They can indirectly change it. And one of the things that all the economists on this thing discussed was the fact that the federal deficit, all right, now remember, there's 2 different words, boys and girls, right? You're going to hear me say deficit, and you're going to hear me say debt. All right. The deficit is how much you are putting on your credit card this month to pay the bills. That's your deficit. Now, does you're spending less than money you have, if you still are spending more, you have a deficit. Right? The debt is the accumulation of all the deficits you've made over the last years. Right? Now, one of the things that they pointed out is that we're adding just about $1 trillion to the debt every 100 days. Right? That's been going on for the last 4 years. Right? It's accelerated a bit because we had the Let's Make More inflation bill that they passed. Right? They were supposed to stop inflation, but you don't stop inflation by throwing money at the problem. But it's a really great way to pay off your team. So we're still working through that kind of stuff. But can you get 4s and 5s with their current debt? And this is one of the charts that NAR had for us. Right. So this guy right here, Lawrence Young, he is the economist that we hire as National Association of Realtors to talk about this, right? And this is a national debt, which is a cumulative of all past deficits. Wow, who just said that? I just said that, right? So this was our national debt right about January 1990. Okay, and remember what happened during 1990? We get a little thing called the First Persian Gulf War. This is the Poppy Bush administration, right? And then Clinton comes in and wins in 94, right? And I distinctly remember living there in my 20s, people screaming about how bad our debt was back then, right? Now, this number right here, okay, that's not 500 million. You got to add more numbers on it. That's 5 trillion. That's 10 trillion. All right, so on and so forth. All right. Back in my investment days, we used to sit there and say that our future unpaid bills, and this is projected bills that are going to happen because of Medicare, Medicaid, and other things like that, was going to reach about $100 trillion. Right? That was pre-COVID conversation, before everything else. And it was a reoccurring thing that some of us were talking about. Right? Most of the boomers got really, really bored because they were, one, expecting to use that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, and two, weren't going to be around when the bill came due. All right, but let's look at how these little things go out. So we have, now I would like to point out, a lot of things people forget. You almost see the deficit go down right about here. Right? That's because we were running a surplus back then. Right? When we crossed over in the year 2000, picture this, 24 short years ago, right? We were paying all of our bills with our paycheck. Nothing was going on the credit card, right? We were looking pretty good. Bush Jr. comes in, cuts taxes, and next thing you know, we have this little thing called the War on Terror, and you start seeing the War on Terror prices spiking up. What happens in 08? Historians in the audience, all right? In 08, we have a real estate crash and a recession. You normally see a debt spike a bit during recession. So there's a reason for that. In a recession, you want to stimulate the economy, and some government spending during the middle of all that is a good thing. You start getting the industry going. If the civilian market isn't ordering new widgets, if the government comes in and orders new widgets, that company gets to stay afloat. They get to hire some more people. That puts more money in the economy. That means people are buying things, and we're out of our recession. So January 08. So the first part of the War on Terror, which is September 11th, 2021, up until January 8th or January 08, okay, we're looking pretty good. And then we get this run. All right, this is where things start getting a little squirrely. All right, so the point, these two arrows right there, these are the two Trump administrations. All right, this is his future administration. This is his past administration. All right, and you can see Trump really didn't do anything to stop this crazy spending spree. Right, we did not see that happen. There was a lot of grumbling out there on the internets. All right, going, hey, wait a minute, I thought Republicans were supposed to be not about the deficit, right? All about spending, this, that, and the other thing. But on the other side, guys, looking at you, Father, you're not seeing a huge spike up from his tax cuts. One of the reasons for that is in this weird little thing called the Laffer curve, you can actually get more income in if you reduce the tax rates, because what happens is by reducing the tax rates, you're allowing the consumers to have more money, and they spend more money, and companies invest on new equipment, and so they're making more money, and strangely enough, you get more taxes, you get more revenue coming in that way. There was a person on Facebook about many, many years ago, so many years ago he's not even talked to me anymore, who asked the question to all you guys who believe in the Laffer curve: when do you know you stopped cutting taxes enough? And strangely enough, Laffer actually had an answer to that. He said, you keep cutting until the first quarter you actually see tax revenues go down. But it'll be substantial. All right? I'd love to try that theory, but hey, this is not a political show, as much as politics impacts my industry. Right? I'm just pointing out that we're trying to project what's going to happen in 2025, right? So National Association of Realtors is saying that debt is the primary thing that's going to be driving our interest rates, not the Fed funds, right? But the very fact that as we spend $1 trillion every 100 days, every 3 months plus, we spend more money than we take in, right? We need to max out our credit card, which means somebody out there has to put the money on our credit card for us to spend it. So if you are a have, or another country, or anybody out there, and you have the surplus money, you can look in buying a T-bill with that. All right, let's go give it to the feds, all right? And they're going to borrow it and whatnot, slightly above whatever the 10-year fixed is, and they're going to put their money in the 10-year fixed rates. All right, now, if the federal government is not borrowing that much money, there's not that many places for those people with money to put it into, because if there are only 100 T-bills are sold this month, right, and you got enough money for 110, what are you doing with the other 10 T-bills worth of value? You throw it into other things, and one of those things you throw it into is the mortgage market. Right? So his argument on the whole thing is that you will not see 4s and 5s, but we can if the federal government is able to come up. Doesn't even have to be a balanced budget, right? It just needs to look like it's going to balance sometime in the next 20, 30 years. All right? If the Republican-controlled House and the Republican-controlled Senate and a Republican-controlled White House can come up with a budget that shows we could be balanced sometime in the next 20 to 30 years, you're going to see interest rates for housing drop, which is going to, remember your three-legged stool, all right? So, are they going to be able to do that? I really, really don't know, right? Trump has never been too hardcore about the deficit and debt. Now, we do have Doji, right? We do have Elon Musk and Vivek coming in there with the mission to make the federal government more efficient. Now, there is a big difference between reducing... what's a good word for that? There is a big difference between making something more efficient and then actually losing the ability to do what you do. Right? Every company in the world does this. Every household in the world has had to do this since about 2008. How do we do what we do now today more efficiently so we have more money, or so we're not running up the credit card? Right? For households, it might be we're not going out to eat twice a week like we did before. For a household, it might be we're not going to go see the movie at $12 a ticket, but $7 bags of popcorn and 2 drinks for $10 a piece, and a Chili's restaurant bill of $50. Right, so the $100 movie is a thing now. Remember, you used to be able to take your girlfriend's little brother and just hand him a quarter and say, hey, go see a movie and get some popcorn, and he would take off and you could run off with the girlfriend kind of stuff. Now you got to hand that kid $100. All right. And he'll look at you and go, I like the jumbo sizes. And you hand him another 50. All right. So, but you can actually, by making something more efficient, you start looking at, hey, maybe it is better to spend $50 to get the Costco card and go down to Costco and buy a year's worth of toilet paper in one jump, because it costs less per roll than what you're spending. All right. So if they come in there with that mindset, all right, and a whole lot of my piece like, why exactly are we spending $1.5 million to study the sex lives of ducks? I'm sure they can find some cuts. Personally, I think I could go through the Department of Defense with fire and sword and have a really good time there. I could definitely go through HUD. All right. But, if they were able to get that under control, you're going to start seeing that. And I think you'll start seeing the organic rush to the market in 1st of January. All right. We're going to have that. All right. But we got the inventory. All right. The inventory is there. Right, that and people trying to sell and the churn kicking back up. I think we can have a good real estate market in the first half of 2025 without a spike in house prices. I think that's available. All right. I think what you might see is you might see some recovery out in the in this side of the house. Surprise, Goodyear, Queen Creek, Maricopa, Buckeye. As people are suddenly able to afford a 400, 450, house, you will see those places recover. All right. Now, Chandler, Scottsdale, Phoenix, Fountain Hills, you'll see an impact out there too. I really wish on the side of these things you could actually, as you saw the place, you saw like a little breakdown of how many listings they have. I mean, what is this is their index, but I want to see how they got to that, what their demand is, what their supply. If you only have 2 houses for sale, all right, in the entire area and 5 people looking at them, you're going to have a pretty good Cromford index number. All right, Buckeye 53. That suggests you have 2 houses for every buyer. All right, so that's what I'm expecting to see the first half. Now, once it's all said and done, and the new House comes up with the spending bill, and they argue it, and they get it over to the Senate, and the Senate argues over it, right? And they pass it, and then it goes to Trump for a signature, and he decides to sign it. You could see serious impacts move on, the interest rate, where people are suddenly now able to buy because the interest rates have fallen that much. Now, when that happens, you are definitely going to see the lower price points get impacted first. First-time home buyers will suddenly be able to get into the game. Now, one of my first year's mistakes that I did is that I tried to make a big, hey, this is what I think is going to be the next year. Yes, let's see if I'm right. And then if you go and you look a year later, I'm like, wow, okay, so screwed that one up. All right, but I'm not going to start quoting your rates or anything. I'm going to say these are the things that could happen, and if these things do happen, this is what I project if these things happen. Last time I just, black swans, never heard of them. Let's just do our thing. So if you like 2025, I think it's going to be good for real estate agents who are willing and in the position to take advantage of this. Right, which means you should have started 2 months ago. And you guys who didn't start 2 months ago, well, sucks to be you. And if your broker didn't tell you to do this, well, if you're with ProStar, we definitely told you. But if you're not with ProStar and some other brokers, well, give us a call and we'll tell you what you needed to do 2 months ago, right? But it's not too late. That's what I'm expecting on this. If you're anticipating wanting to buy or sell a house, you need to have the conversation with the lender now. All right. Because even though you don't want to buy now, and even though your lease isn't going to be up for 4 or 5 months, I have this conversation with people all the time. You can have some low-hanging fruit on your credit score that would be easy to fix. All right. 2, you might get your credit pulled and realize, yeah, you're not buying this year. Not with those numbers. All right. Which means you don't want to piss off your landlord. So if you are anticipating the need, the want, desire to own a house, definitely going to have that conversation. Have it this month before Christmas. All right. If you are not sure, stand pat. Right. You're not getting a crash. You're not getting a crash unless I don't even think the worst MSNBC tariff fever dream is going to give us a real estate crash, because a lot of Arizona, our market is being driven by people moving here because we're a better state to do business. than California, and we're a better state to live in the wintertime than Illinois. All right? So, like I said, everybody says, when's the real estate market going to crash in Arizona? When California stops sucking. And I guess should add to that, when Michigan or when Chicago stops blowing. All right. Okay, marketing. That's what we call marketing. That's a catch line. So, last thing I wanted to touch, all right? So, I have been, because of some stuff going at my VFW post, I went down a rabbit hole about the property that my post is currently on. All right, and very specifically having to do with rights to an adjoining property and whether or not we can park there. All right, right away and easements rights. Stuff I love to get into, which I never get into as a real estate agent. But I have the tools. So I've been sitting there researching the history of my posts and found out that a lot of the handed down, tribal knowledge of the post, like all good, foundation myths, are wrong. Okay, but I discovered this really, really cool lady, and I'm going to continue researching her because she needs to have a plaque at my post, all right, honoring her, all right, and going through her life, and I'm like literally reading old newspapers online, trying to find more about her, okay. I saw this in the classifieds, all right, I just needed to share this with you, all right. This is a clip of the Arizona Republican in April 20th of 1921. And of course they had houses for sale. All right, so picture this. All right, for a new 4-room house, all right, they actually, you stick kids in the living room, right? So 4-room house, corner lot, lights, water, and new shade, $250 down and $25 a month, total purchase price of $1,250. Let me get my credit card. All right, here's a real bargain for you, exclusively listed with us. Guys, what's that called? That's a pocket listing. All right, this new and modern brick Pebble Dash home, I gotta figure out what Pebble Dash means in these things, 4 rooms and 2 screened porches with a built-in features, hardwood floor, splendid framed garage, and 2 rooms and a screen room, toilet and stationary wash stand. All right, reed countertop. All right, cement driveway, walks, and on paved street convenient to the car line located to the northeast, can be bought for the exceptionally low price of $6,500. Part cash, the balance monthly. I just love these things, and it's just that the cars for sale and the flower, this, that, and the other thing. And honestly, Phoenix, Arizona must have been a hell of a place to live back in the 1920s, right? Over 100 years ago, all right? I wish they had addresses on these. I wish they had addresses on these. I would find the property and look it up and compare what the prices are today. That would be incredible. All right. Maybe I can find something as I keep doing my research on this lady. But I did find out, like, literally why one of her street names is named what it is. All right. Whole bunch of really, really interesting. I mean, this woman is just like, I don't have ancestors as cool as this lady. I found out where her husband was born. He was born in Scotland. I don't know how you get from Scotland to Arizona, right? Maybe he had consumption, right? But she was like one of the great real estate slingers of Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm trying to find her original house. All right. I would like to figure out where she originally lived and see if that house exists today. I want to go, is it still there? Where is it located at? Does it have the walk-around porch? Is it a big house? Was it an adobe house? Did it have a pool that your children and pets need to be watched around the entire time? There were washes all over the property we're talking about, but she knew not to drive in anything flooded, right? And well, you had to have a community and you had to work your community. So we know she worked her circles. And I bet you some days sucked. But I bet you she had a lot of great days. And I hope you guys have a good weekend. Talk to you guys later.